Let's talk about 10 things that Sweden was the first country in the world to do.
My name is not Sven, it is Martin, yeah.
On July 1st, 1979, 20 days before I was born, Sweden was the first country in the world to ban corporal punishment, meaning to smack your children. This law was very controversial within and outside of Sweden because there were some people that said that the law should not dictate how you raise and discipline your children. But after this, several other countries followed along. Sweden was the first country to get its own phone number. Yes, in 2016, people based outside of Sweden could call this number and get transferred to a random Swede who had signed up through an app delivered by the Swedish Tourist Association. The idea was that the person who called would get their answers to their questions, and that would be a way to promote Sweden. On December 2nd, 1766, Sweden was the first country in the world to get freedom of the press written into its constitution. The Swedish Freedom of the Press Act also established the principle of providing access for people to information, which made it legal to both publish and read public information. Sweden was the first country in the world to introduce voting rights for women. That was in 1718. However, this was abolished in 1778, only to be reintroduced over 100 years later. The actual decision was taken in 1919, and the first election held was 1921. Sweden was the first country in the world to introduce a feminist foreign policy. This was announced in 2014 by Foreign Minister Margot Wallström, and it laid on the 3 R's. Rights, representation, resources, aiming at changing structures and enhancing the visibility of women and girls from passive audience to actors in foreign policy. In 1974, Sweden became the first country to replace the maternity leave with the parental leave. This meant that the maternity insurance was replaced with the parental insurance, making it possible for men, the father, to stay home on paid leave on the same terms as women with their small children. Parents of both sexes are entitled to a total of 480 days of paid parental leave. Some of these days can be transferred to the other parents, but having a father who doesn't take his share of the paid leave is frowned upon. Fathers are also entitled to 10 days of paid leave at the time of the birth of the child. In 1972, Sweden became the first country to legally allow gender change and provide free hormone therapy. 7 years later, Sweden joined a couple of other countries in declassifying homosexuality as an illness. Transgenderism, however, was not declassified until 2017. On January 1st, 1999, Sweden became the first country in the world to criminalize buying of sexual favors. Not selling, but buying sexual favors. The idea was that organized prostitution and trafficking served as a finance method for other criminal activities, because if you target the demand for sexual favors, you take away the need for the supply, and thereby you defund the opportunity for other kinds of criminal activities like smuggling drugs or illegal firearms. Sweden was the first country to achieve the joint United Nations program on HIV and AIDS. The 2014 UN/AIDS World Health Organization 1990 goals for HIV care had proposed that 90% of all people living with HIV should know their HIV status, 90% of those diagnosed should receive antiretroviral therapy, and 90% of those should have durable viral suppression. In the end, 73% of all those living with HIV should be virologically suppressed by the year 2020. Sweden achieved this already in 2017 with 78% suppression. The world's first ATM where you could check your balance before withdrawal was introduced in Malmö, the third biggest city in Sweden. The bank was Uxie Härads Sparbank, and Uxie is the community outside of Malmö where I grew up. The machine was introduced on May 6, 1968, and it was hooked up to an IBM 360 computer through a data link. Magic! And let's also make a prediction. Sweden might be the first country in the world to completely go from coins and bills to a cashless economy. Currently, only 3% of all transactions in Sweden is using cash. We'll see about that. So there you go. Those were 10 things that Sweden did first in the world. Do you know any of the first in the world from your country, and which are they? And thank you so much for watching. I will see you the next time you click on one of my videos. Bye.